I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, but here we are. My name's Mike, and I was with Emily for about 5 years before we got engaged. We were supposed to get married in a month. Everything seemed perfect, at least on the surface. She was gorgeous, smart, charming, and seemed totally committed. I mean, I honestly thought I'd found my soulmate. We had plans, dreams, a future lined up. Or so I thought. Looking back, there were some weird signs early on, but I guess I was blinded by love. Emily started acting a little distant in the months leading up to the wedding. She'd cancel plans last minute, say she was busy with work, or she just wouldn't answer her phone. She'd go out with her friends, but I'd get these vague texts that made me feel uneasy. Nothing concrete, just little gut feelings that kept nagging at me. I remember asking her about it once, and she snapped right back. "You're overreacting, Mike. I love you, trust me." That was her favorite line, trust me. Like somehow that was supposed to make everything okay. And then there was the phone. She always kept it close, like it was her lifeline. One day I caught her slipping her phone into her purse faster than normal when I walked into the room. I didn't think much of it at first, but those little things piled up. I started noticing that her messages changed. She was more secretive, hiding her screen, deleting texts and calls. She'd lie about where she was going or who she was with. It all felt off, but I didn't want to believe it. I kept telling myself maybe I was paranoid, maybe I was just overthinking because of wedding nerves. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, I found something that shook me to the core. I was cleaning out her purse, don't ask why, I had a weird feeling, and I saw a small, folded note tucked inside her wallet. It wasn't just a grocery list or a receipt. It was a message, a text from someone named Jake, and it was pretty explicit. They talked about meeting up, sneaking around, and how much they wanted to be together. My stomach dropped. I stared at it for a solid 5 minutes, trying to make sense of what I was reading. I felt like I'd been punched. It was clear Emily was cheating on me with her own brother's best friend, Jake. The timing was insane, right before our wedding, right before our lives were supposed to change forever. I confronted her that same night. I was furious, trembling, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. I threw the note on the table and asked her what the hell was going on. Her reaction. Classic Emily. She got defensive, accused me of invading her privacy, called me paranoid, said I was just stressed over the wedding. She even lied about the note, said she found it lying around and was going to throw it away. Yeah, right. She said it was nothing, just a flirtation, and that Jake was just a friend. But I knew better. I knew that wasn't just some harmless banter. It was a full-blown affair, and the fact that it was with her own brother's best friend made it so much worse. It was betrayal on a level I never saw coming. That night I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept replaying her lies, trying to understand how she could do this to me, too. Her family, to everyone who trusted her. I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and disgust. I'd given her all I had, my love, my trust, and she'd thrown it away for some stupid, reckless sex with Jake, right before our lives were about to change forever. I thought about calling off the wedding right then and there, but part of me wanted to see what she'd say next, what her next move would be. I was furious, but I also felt like I'd just uncovered a secret that would destroy everything I believed in. The next few days felt like walking through a nightmare. I was stuck in this weird limbo, angry, hurt, but also confused about what to do. Part of me wanted to just pack my things and walk away, erase her from my life. But another part stubbornly clung to the idea that maybe I could fix this, that somehow she'd come clean and tell me everything. Foolish, I know. But when you're in love, you cling to hope even when it's obviously misplaced. Emily kept acting like everything was normal. She'd smile at me, pretend she was innocent, and act like I was overreacting. She'd throw out little remarks like, "You're being paranoid, Mike," or "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" I could see the stress behind her eyes, the guilt she was trying to hide, but she was good at covering it up. Still, I noticed her phone was always glued to her hand, and she started canceling plans with her family and friends more often. She'd say she was too busy or had too much work, but I knew better. One night, I decided to do something I probably shouldn't have, went through her phone again. I needed answers, even if I knew I'd hate what I found. Sure enough, there were messages, texts, photos, even some late-night calls. Jake wasn't just some guy she met at a bar, they were practically in a relationship. The stuff they exchanged was beyond inappropriate. Flirty messages, photos of her in bed, vague references to us, secrets, and tomorrow. The worst part, she told me she was working late or out with her friends. Lies after lies after lies. I felt sick. My stomach was churning. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she lie to me right before we get married? I was supposed to be the happiest guy in the world, planning my future with the woman I loved. Instead, I was drowning in betrayal that hit even harder because it was with her own brother's buddy. That detail made everything so much worse. The family bond, the trust, shattered into a million pieces. I confronted her again that night. This time I was cold, calculated. I showed her the messages, the photos, everything I'd found. Her reaction. She didn't try to deny it outright. Instead, she got bitchy, said I was spying, that I was insecure, that she was just curious and nothing serious. She threw a tantrum, yelled at me about how I was accusing her of something she didn't do, and then she suddenly started sobbing, acting like the victim. But I wasn't buying it. I saw her for what she was, someone who was willing to throw everything away for a quick sex affair with my brother's best friend no less, and then lie her way out of it. That moment was a turning point for me. I realized I was wasting my breath on someone who clearly didn't respect me or our relationship. All the signs were there, her secret messages, her lies, the sneaking around. She was a master at hiding her true self behind that bitchy facade. It hurt knowing she'd been lying all this time, that she could look me in the eyes and keep pretending. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. It was like the floor had dropped out from under me, and I was left trying to find my footing in a world that suddenly felt cold and empty. I started questioning everything. The love I thought we had, the future I'd envisioned, even my own judgment. How did I not see it? Why did I trust her so blindly? The pain was overwhelming, but I also knew I had to be strong. I couldn't let her tears or her lies manipulate me anymore. I had to decide what I was going to do next. That's when I realized I needed to step back, figure out what I wanted, and stop letting her control the narrative. Because at that moment, I knew I'd never be the same again. After that confrontation, I knew I couldn't just go on pretending everything was okay. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. I stayed up all night, awake with a mixture of anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. I couldn't believe I had been so blind, so trusting, only to find out that she'd been lying to me right before our wedding. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut multiple times. The thought that she'd cheated on me with my own brother's best friend made it even worse. That added a whole layer of family betrayal I wasn't prepared for. The next morning, everything felt numb. I didn't want to believe it was real, but the evidence was undeniable. I kept replaying that night's discovery, trying to find some way to undo it, some way to fix the damage. But deep down, I knew it was too late for that. The damage was already done. I was faced with a brutal choice. Do I confront her again, try to work things out, or just walk away? Honestly, I was exhausted. My mind was racing in dozens of directions, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I decided I needed some space, so I went for a long walk. The cold air hit my face and I felt numb but also painfully real. I knew I couldn't keep living in this cloud of deception. I needed to figure out what I truly wanted. I thought about the wedding, how everything was supposed to be perfect. Instead, it was turning into the nightmare I hadn't seen coming. I felt like I'd lost the most important person in my life, and I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye properly. Instead, I was left with a mountain of lies and a shattered future. As I walked, I kept thinking about what she said when I confronted her. Her bitchy little defenses, her lies, her fake tears. She kept insisting she loved me, that it was just a stupid mistake, that she was so sorry, but I couldn't buy any of it. How could I? She lied so convincingly, and the fact that her affair was with my brother's best friend just made everything 10 times worse. I started to see her for what she really was, someone who was willing to throw away everything for a quick fuck, someone manipulative enough to lie constantly and blame everyone else. I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't go into the wedding knowing she'd been cheating on me, that she'd been lying right to my face. I started considering calling it off, but I also knew I needed to think carefully. I didn't want to do anything rash, at least not yet. I needed to gather my thoughts, figure out if I wanted to save what was left of this relationship or cut my losses and walk away. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I couldn't trust her anymore. Not after all this. She had broken every promise, every vow with her lies and her sex with Jake. That day, I decided I'd stay quiet for now, play it cool, and see what she would do next. Maybe if I pushed her, she'd crack and admit everything. Or maybe I'd find a way to expose her to everyone. The betrayal cut too deep, and I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. I also started thinking about how this would affect my family, my brother, his wife, everyone. It was a mess I didn't want to deal with, but I also knew I couldn't pretend it did happen. I couldn't pretend everything was fine when I knew the truth. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling around what I just learned, what I discovered, and what I was going to do next. I felt powerless but also strangely determined. I didn't want her to get away with this. I deserved better, damn it. I deserved honesty, respect, and someone who wouldn't cheat with my own brother's best friend. I swear, I never thought I'd be the guy to experience something like this, but here I was, heartbroken, betrayed, and trying to piece everything back together. Over the next few days, everything seemed to spiral even further out of control. I kept trying to keep my cool, but inside I was boiling. Every time I saw Emily, I felt this mix of rage and sadness that was almost unbearable. She was still acting bitchy, throwing around her usual lies, trying to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. She'd say I was ruining her life, accuse me of being paranoid, and then cry just to make herself look innocent. Honestly, it was exhausting. I could see right through her act now. The mask was falling apart. One afternoon, I decided I needed to confront her head-on. No more hiding, no more pretending. I told her I knew everything about the messages, the sex, the lies. I looked her dead in the eyes and laid it all out. I told her I couldn't trust her anymore, that I was done pretending. Her reaction. She got even more bitchy, rolled her eyes, and snapped at me. "You're just overthinking again, Mike. You always do this. You're insecure, jealous, and stupid. Maybe I should just leave you." She was actually trying to turn it around on me. That was her go-to, blame everyone else, make herself the victim. I didn't bite. I told her straight up that I was done with the lies and I wanted her to leave. She didn't argue much, just threw her phone down on the table and stormed off, probably to call her friends and spin her story. I sat there for a long time, feeling emptier than I ever had before. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the chest, and I realized I wasn't just heartbroken, I was angry. So furious I almost wanted to scream. But instead, I just sat in silence, trying to process what I'd uncovered and what it meant for my future. That night, I started thinking about revenge, not in a vengeful, destructive way, but as a way to make her feel some of what I was feeling. I knew I couldn't undo what she did, but I could make her regret it. I'd been planning it in my head for days. I wasn't about to let her walk all over me, especially not with her bullshit attitude. I decided to leak some of her messages to her friends, family, maybe even her brother. Let her see how exposed she was. I knew it would blow up her little world, and honestly, I wanted her to feel just a fraction of the pain I'd felt. She lied to her family, to her friends, to me. That kind of betrayal deserved consequences, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. I started gathering everything, screenshots, messages, photos. I hid her phone so she couldn't delete anything at the last minute. I wanted her to see that I was serious. I planned to tell her I'd expose her if she didn't come clean and admit everything. I was furious, but also calculated. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into feeling guilty or ashamed. No, this was about her lying, cheating, and breaking every promise she ever made. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but think about my brother. I hadn't told him what I found yet, but I knew I would have to. It was eating me up inside. How could I keep something like this from him? His best friend, Jake, was the one she'd been screwing behind his back. That's a betrayal I don't think I'll ever fully get over. I kept imagining the look on my brother's face when he found out or when I told him. The thought of destroying their friendship made me sick, but it also felt like the only honest thing to do. I couldn't keep secrets anymore. If I was going down, I was going down fighting. That night I lay awake again, thinking about everything, her lies, her bitchy attitude, the betrayal with Jake, and how my entire world had turned upside down. I felt so betrayed, so hurt, but also a strange sense of clarity. I realized I couldn't keep pretending I was okay. I had to take control of this mess and do what was right for me. The more I thought about it, the more I knew I had to confront my brother with the truth. I owed him that much. No matter how much it was going to hurt, I couldn't carry this weight forever. And honestly, I didn't want to. I just wanted to get it all out in the open and see where I stood. I waited a couple of days, trying to calm my nerves before I made the decision to tell my brother. It wasn't easy. I knew how fragile family relationships could be, and I didn't want to rip everything apart, but I also couldn't keep hiding the truth. I couldn't carry this secret anymore. So one evening I called him over. We sat in his living room, quiet, tense. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. The messages, the sex, Emily's lies. I told him what I'd discovered, how she'd been cheating with Jake right before our wedding, and how she'd been lying to all of us. His face went pale. He looked shocked but also betrayed. I could see that pain in his eyes, the kind that cuts deep because it's not just about me, it's about his own sister and his best friend. I told him I didn't want to destroy their friendship, but I couldn't keep it from him either. I told him I thought he needed to hear the truth directly from me, otherwise he'd find out from someone else. We sat in silence for a while, and I could see he was processing everything, trying to figure out how to handle this bombshell. I felt terrible for him, but also relieved I finally told him. After I told him, the silence stretched out. He finally spoke, voice strained. "Damn, Mike. I had no idea. I mean, I knew Emily was bitchy and difficult sometimes, but I never thought she'd do something like this. With Jake, no less." He looked furious, but also hurt. We talked more about it, about how Emily had been lying and manipulating everyone. I told him I was planning to expose her, make her face the consequences. He nodded slowly, saying he appreciated me telling him, and that he'd talk to Emily himself. I knew that was going to be a mess, but I also felt a weight lift off my chest. At least I had been honest with him. In that moment, I realized how much this whole thing had changed me. I'd gone from feeling like a fool to feeling like someone who finally took control. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. I was going to confront her one last time and make her own her lies. I knew I couldn't stay with her, not after everything. My trust was shattered beyond repair. I felt a strange sense of relief, mixed with heartbreak. I'd loved her, I really did, but love isn't enough when it's built on lies and betrayal. The next step was to prepare for the showdown. I decided I'd send the evidence to her family, her friends, and even her brother if I had to. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I was done being the fool in this story. I started drafting messages, carefully wording everything so she couldn't spin it. I wanted her to feel exposed and humiliated, just like I'd felt when I first found out. I wasn't going to let her walk away scot-free, not this time. She had to face the consequences of her actions. As I looked over everything, I realized this was about more than just her cheating. It was about respect, honesty, and integrity. She threw all that away for sex, for lies, for a reckless fling with Jake. And now she had to deal with the fallout. I didn't care if she cried, begged, or tried to manipulate me. Nothing was going to change what she did. I felt a strange sense of closure, knowing I was finally taking control of my life again. I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, but I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I deserved better, and now I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of person she really was. The day I finally sent everything out, screenshots, messages, photos, was like releasing a floodgate. I was trembling, but at the same time I felt a strange sense of clarity. Her family, her friends, even her brother's wife, all received the evidence of her betrayal. I made sure to do it anonymously at first, wanting her to feel the shock and shame firsthand. I knew she'd spin her stories, try to deny everything, but I had the proof. No one could deny what she'd done. Her reaction was immediate. She exploded. She called me crying, screaming, begging me to take it all back, to forgive her. She insisted that she was sorry, that it was just sex, that she didn't mean for it to happen. She called me jealous, insecure, and said I was ruining everything because I couldn't just forget. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I let her whine and lie, but I didn't respond. I knew that whatever she was saying was just more of her bullshit. She lied enough. Now everyone else knew the truth. Her family was devastated. Her brother called me in tears asking for the truth, and I told him everything. He was furious at Emily, at Jake, at the whole situation. Our family was never the same after that. There was anger, pain, and a lot of awkward silences. I'd never seen my brother so upset. For a while I felt guilty, like I'd torn apart a family. But then I remembered everything Emily had done, how she'd lied and cheated and manipulated. I realized I had no choice but to expose her. Staying silent would have made me complicit in her lies. Emily tried to spin her story, painting herself as some victim of a misunderstanding. She even told her friends that I was overreacting, that she loved me, and that I was just trying to control her. But none of that mattered. The truth was out, and the consequences were beginning to pile up. Her reputation was in ruins, and the trust I once had in her was completely broken. I watched her try to cling to her lies, but it was clear she knew her world was falling apart. For a while, I hesitated over whether I should go back or push forward. But deep down, I knew I couldn't rebuild what was broken. The love I had for her was gone. I realized I'd been clinging to a fantasy, thinking love could fix everything, even when I had all the proof that she didn't deserve my trust anymore. I made the decision then to leave her behind. I didn't want to be with someone who lied so easily, someone who could betray her own family and still try to pretend everything was fine. The aftermath was brutal. I moved out, cut off contact, and started rebuilding my life from scratch. It hurt like hell, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I learned a lot from this whole nightmare about trust, deception, and the importance of listening to your gut. If there's any advice I could give anyone in a similar situation, it's this: trust your instincts, don't ignore the signs, and never stay silent when someone betrays you. Because in the end, truth always comes out. And when it does, you either face it head on or get crushed by it. Looking back, I realize I was better off without her. I learned that love isn't enough if it's built on lies. You have to have honesty, respect, and loyalty. Without those, everything crumbles. I've since started focusing on myself, rebuilding my confidence and learning to trust again, slowly but surely. I don't regret exposing her, even if it tore everything apart. Because sometimes the truth has to come out, no matter how painful it is. And I know now that I deserve better than someone who can look me in the eyes and lie so effortlessly. That's the end of my story, raw, real, and finally done.